The Billionaire's Ghost. A reckoning in Viridia City. The world adored Alexander Thorne. At 32, he was the youngest CEO in Aura Tech's history, a sprawling multi-billion-dollar empire built on groundbreaking quantum computing and secure cloud networks. His face graced the covers of every major business magazine. His keynote speeches commanded global attention, and he shook hands with presidents and prime ministers without so much as a tremor. Every photo of him presented the same immaculate image: perfectly sculpted dark hair, piercing gray eyes that conveyed just the right measure of cool detachment, and a smile that could close multi-billion-dollar deals before a single contract was ever reviewed. He resided in a penthouse overlooking Viridia City's shimmering skyline, drove a custom-built hydrogen-powered supercar, and wore tailored suits worth more than most people's annual income. To anyone observing from the outside, Alexander Thorne was flawless, ruthlessly ambitious, utterly disciplined, and undeniably destined for even greater heights. But there was one thing Alexander didn't possess, something he had once almost jeopardized everything for: love. 5 years prior, before fully stepping into his demanding role as Aura Tech's CEO, Alexander had been deeply involved with someone who simply didn't fit into the meticulously crafted life plan his family had laid out for him. Her name was Willow Hayes. She wasn't a socialite, nor a venture capitalist, and certainly hadn't been born into the gilded cage of wealth. Willow was a postgraduate student, diligently studying sustainable urban design through scholarships and a myriad of part-time jobs, her hands often smudged with charcoal from sketches, her notebooks overflowing with messy, brilliant ideas. She had long, flowing auburn hair, incredibly expressive emerald eyes, and a unique way of looking at Alexander that made him feel like he was more than just his formidable title, more than his projected image of perfection. With Willow, he didn't have to perform. With her, he laughed louder, slept sounder, and dreamed more freely than he ever had before. Their paths crossed at a local community art benefit, an event Alexander had only attended out of strict obligation. She was tirelessly helping to arrange the lighting for a gallery display, and he, absorbed in his latest market analysis on his compad, literally stumbled into her. It was the most unexpectedly human moment he'd experienced in months. Their relationship blossomed away from the public eye, thriving in the private pockets of their lives. Long, aimless walks through Viridia City's hidden alleys, late-night takeout shared on quiet rooftops under the vast city lights, and endless conversations about their deepest dreams and fears. Willow didn't care about his money. She'd playfully mock his expensive chronometer and steadfastly refuse to let him pay her rent. She made him feel authentically real in a world where every aspect of his existence felt carefully manufactured. For the first time in his life, he envisioned a future that revolved not around quarterly profits or aggressive board meetings, but around a small, intimate wedding, a cozy home filled with warmth, and children with bright, intelligent eyes and boundless energy. He saw Willow in every single version of that cherished future, but his parents, Arthur and Evelyn Thorne, had significantly different, far grander designs. When they eventually discovered Alexander's relationship with Willow, their reaction was immediate, chilling, and brutal. Arthur, the stoic chairman of the Aura Tech board, and arguably the most emotionally detached man Alexander had ever known, summoned him to his stark, modern office. His words were delivered with the precision of a surgical strike. "She is not your equal, Alexander. She detracts from your image. Marry her, and we will immediately initiate the process of removing you from succession." His mother, Evelyn, didn't even bother to conceal her open disdain. "Do you genuinely wish to bring such embarrassment upon the Thorne family?" She'd coldly inquired, "What on earth will our shareholders conclude when they witness you with someone so commonplace?" Lucas tried to resist. He fought back. He vehemently told them he didn't care about their calculated perceptions, their meticulously constructed world of power and influence. But Oratech wasn't merely a company. It was a dynasty, a legacy meticulously passed down through 4 generations. His very name was a brand. His public persona was an investment. And as the immense pressure mounted, from his family, from the powerful board members, from countless advisors who ceaselessly reminded him of his overwhelming obligations, Alexander felt the suffocating walls of his world closing in, trapping him. The most agonizing part: he never told Willow the unvarnished truth. One day, he simply ended it. No explanation, no agonizing discussion. He merely stated that he needed to laser focus on his career and walked out of her small, sunlit apartment, leaving behind the woman he had so recently envisioned a forever with. Willow called once, then twice. Then her calls ceased. He never answered. He plunged himself headlong into work, trying desperately to convince himself that his decision had been a necessary evil, that it was truly for the best. Yet not a single day passed when he didn't think of her, when he didn't stumble upon something that served as a cruel reminder of the genuine life he had so callously abandoned. He desperately missed her vibrant laugh, the endearing way she would say his name when she was angry, the profound way she made him feel like a real man, not merely a manufactured product. Still, he never reached out. Admitting he was wrong would mean confronting the monumental scale of everything he'd so willingly given up. And at that pivotal moment in his life, Alexander Thorne simply didn't know how to face the crushing weight of regret. Not yet. Take a moment to consider. If you were in Alexander's shoes, torn between immense family pressure and true love, what difficult choice would you have made? Is the pursuit of legacy ever truly worth sacrificing personal happiness? Please like this video! Willow Hayes had always been too practical for fairy tales. Yet falling in love with Alexander Thorne had felt perilously close to one. For a brief, intoxicating period, their connection was more profound than she ever dreamed possible. She vividly remembered the raw warmth in his eyes when he looked at her as if she were the solitary person in the entire world. She recalled those magical nights on her rooftop, the Viridia city lights stretching into an infinite sky, and Alexander whispering about his desperate desire to escape the suffocating world of cameras and boardrooms, longing only to live a simple, normal life with her. She believed him. She believed every single word, every unspoken promise woven into the intimate spaces between their kisses and silences. But then, one day, he was simply gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a chillingly cold, meticulously worded message stating he required space to focus on his future. She waited for his call. She desperately tried to reach him. She left a long, pleading voicemail. Then another. But the deafening silence that followed wasn't merely an absence. It was deliberate. It was definitive. And so, with a shattered heart, she stopped waiting. Willow immersed herself in her academic pursuits and part-time jobs, pouring her profound heartbreak into complex blueprints and demanding deadlines, trying to lose herself completely in her studies. But only a few weeks later, she began to notice subtle yet undeniable changes in her body. The persistent fatigue, the unsettling nausea, the missed cycle. She initially rationalized it as stress, a byproduct of her emotional turmoil. But when she finally took a pregnancy test and saw the undeniable result, her breath hitched, caught in her throat. She didn't cry. She simply stood motionless in her small bathroom, staring at the bold word positive, as if it were written in an alien language. Then she slowly sank onto the edge of her bed and uttered not a single word for a very, very long time. The doctor unequivocally confirmed her pregnancy, but the subsequent ultrasound revealed something she absolutely did not expect. 2 distinct heartbeats, twins, 2 burgeoning lives growing within her, 2 undeniable, living reminders of a man who had walked away without a single backward glance. She considered calling him again, her finger hovering over his old number. She imagined the words she would use, the plea she would make. But then she vividly recalled the unanswered voicemail, the cold, dismissive response from his assistant, the unsettling way he had vanished, as if she had meant absolutely nothing. And she painfully realized she simply couldn't endure that soul-crushing experience again. So she didn't call. She didn't write. She painstakingly deleted his number from her contacts. She accepted, deep in the aching core of her soul, that he was never coming back. Willow made the difficult decision to leave Viridia City. There was simply no place for her there anymore, not with the ghosts of a past life haunting every corner. She secured a modest job in a quaint, smaller town called Havenwood Falls, at a drafting office where no one asked invasive questions about her past. She rented a humble, cozy apartment and lived frugally, meticulously, saving every single penny. The twin pregnancy was arduous, demanding every ounce of her resilience, but she was stronger. She worked through swollen feet, through endless sleepless nights, and through the bone-deep terror of being utterly alone in the world. She took her prenatal vitamins with the help of local food bank coupons. She often skipped meals herself to ensure she could afford tiny baby clothes. And when the time finally came, she delivered 2 healthy, beautiful baby boys, Leo and Noah. They had striking dark hair from birth, a testament to their father's genes, and the most dazzling gray eyes she had ever seen. It was like seeing 2 miniature versions of the man she had once loved so deeply. Initially, it broke her heart anew to see him reflected in their innocent faces, but with the passage of time, that profound feeling gradually softened into something else entirely, something far more ferocious. Love. Not for what might have been, but for the beautiful, tangible reality of what was. Her boys were her entire universe. They were wild, exuberantly noisy, delightfully messy, and utterly perfect. They were the singular reason she dragged herself out of bed each morning when her body ached and her bank account hovered dangerously close to zero. She worked tirelessly late into the nights, taking on every conceivable freelance gig, drafting plans for quaint shops, bustling cafes, even rustic barns, anything that kept the lights on and food on the table. She fed her boys, clothed them, gently kissed their scraped knees, and read them bedtime stories, even when she was so exhausted she could barely stand. Willow never once mentioned Alexander's name, not a single time. When the boys, in their innocent curiosity, asked why they didn't have a daddy, she would tell them the truth, gently, that sometimes people leave because they are afraid of love, and that it is never their fault, nor hers. She didn't dwell on thoughts of vengeance. She refused to linger in the painful clutches of the past. Instead, she poured every ounce of her formidable energy into raising 2 endlessly curious and brave little boys who had absolutely no idea they carried a last name that once dominated the financial landscape of an entire city. Yet, late at night, when they were finally asleep, she sometimes found herself silently wondering what Alexander would say if he ever saw them. Would he even recognize them as his own? Would he feel anything? Or would he simply do what he did best, turn away, and pretend nothing mattered? She told herself it truly didn't matter, that she didn't care, that she had meticulously built a beautiful life without him. And in truth, she had. But fate, as it always does, had other, unforeseen plans. The invitation arrived unexpectedly, nestled innocently within the inbox of Willow's modest personal email account, with a generic subject line: Viridia City Architectural Summit, featured speaker selection. Initially, she presumed it was a mistake, a mass email gone awry. She had never, in her wildest dreams, presented at any major professional event, much less one of this caliber in Viridia City. But the message was undeniably real. They had thoroughly reviewed her innovative design proposal for a sustainable, low-cost, and deeply community-focused women's shelter, and they wanted her to speak on a prominent panel. It wasn't a paid engagement, but they would cover all travel and lodging expenses. It was the singular opportunity she'd dreamed of for years, the kind of professional recognition she never truly believed she'd receive as a single mother of two, quietly navigating the demanding background of the architectural world. She hesitated for only a fleeting moment, a whirlwind of doubt and hope. Then, with a deep breath, she replied yes. Returning to Viridia City after a 5-year absence felt profoundly surreal. Everything looked uncannily the same, yet nothing felt familiar anymore. She arrived with 5-year-old Leo and Noah in tow, 2 bundles of energetic curiosity who asked a ceaseless stream of questions on the cross-country flight, stared wide-eyed at the towering skyline, and excitedly declared the city's buildings looked like colossal Lego towers. She dressed them smartly for the summit, in crisp collared shirts and freshly polished sneakers, and packed a large bag filled with coloring books, small puzzles, and snacks to keep them happily occupied while she presented. She had no one to watch them, and she absolutely wasn't going to let that deter her from seizing this opportunity. They sat patiently, quietly, near the back of the spacious exhibition hall as she stood poised beside her scale model of the shelter, her palms slightly damp, her heart thrumming with a mix of nerves and excitement. The event was hosted in a gleaming downtown skyscraper, its crystal walls allowing sunlight to flood the entire venue. She tried desperately not to think about the possibility of encountering anyone she knew. Viridia City was vast. He wouldn't be here. Why would he be? Then, she heard his voice. She was halfway through eloquently answering a question from a zealous reporter when his voice cut through the professional hum of the room, low, unmistakably confident, and far too familiar to ignore. She froze, a sudden, cold dread seizing her. Her stomach churned violently before her eyes even confirmed it. Alexander Thorne was less than 20 feet away, laughing softly with a cluster of impeccably suited sponsors, his presence magnetic and undeniable. He hadn't visibly changed, not really. His dark hair was still flawlessly sculpted, his posture as casually powerful as ever, but now older, with subtle, harder edges etched around his eyes. His expression remained placid, calm, until his gaze, almost by accident, landed directly on her. Willow saw the precise moment it struck him. First, a flicker of confusion. Then, undeniable shock. Then, something far deeper, a dawning realization that seemed to shake him to his core. His eyes darted past her, immediately locking onto the 2 small boys sitting quietly on the floor behind her presentation table, diligently coloring on the plush carpet. Time seemed to slow, stretching into an agonizing eternity. Alexander's face visibly paled. His gaze remained fixed on the twins, and Willow could almost see the frantic gears turning in his mind, rapidly and desperately. She didn't move, She didn't smile. She absolutely didn't look away. He began to walk towards her, a predator closing in, or perhaps a ghost returning. She stiffened, her fingers digging into the edge of her exhibition table, as if it could physically anchor her to the solid ground. The bustling people around them, the hum of the city, the important summit, the intervening 5 years, everything seemed to fade into a muffled background noise. All that remained was this singular, impossible moment. He stopped directly in front of her, his voice barely a raw whisper. "Willow." She didn't respond, her jaw tight. He looked at the boys again, a profound tremor in his composure. Then back at her, visibly, utterly shaken. Are they mine?" She held his gaze, her emerald eyes unwavering. "Yes," she stated, her voice calm, utterly serene, and laced with an unexpected steel. "They are yours." He recoiled as if struck, a profound blow to his very core. For a moment, he looked precisely like someone who had just received a devastating punch to the gut. "I didn't know," he uttered, his voice ragged, utterly disbelieving. "I had no idea." "I know," she replied, her voice firm, unflinching. "I tried. You made absolutely sure I couldn't reach you." He blinked, struggling desperately to process the monumental weight of it all. "But why didn't you try again?" Willow offered a soft, bitter, weary laugh, a sound devoid of humor. "I did. I left messages. I sent letters. Your cold-hearted assistant explicitly told me not to call again. I unequivocally assumed you'd made your definitive choice." Alexander slowly looked down, the crushing weight of this newfound understanding settling heavily and irrevocably onto his handsome face. He turned to gaze at the boys again, who, in their innocence, still had no idea who he was. Leo, oblivious to the swirling tension, looked up, offered a wide, innocent smile, and waved cheerfully at him. "I need to speak with you," Alexander stated, his voice barely a crack. Willow crossed her arms, her posture radiating controlled defiance. "Now you want to talk? After 5 years? In the middle of a public event?" He hesitated, then nodded slowly, a hint of desperation in his eyes. "Yes, I need to explain, and I need to understand." She stared at him for a long, agonizing moment. The raw pain she had so carefully buried deep within her resurfaced, a sharp, unwelcome phantom, but she absolutely refused to let him see it. "Not here. Not yet. You can't just waltz back into their lives like nothing ever happened," she said, her voice low but cutting. "But if you genuinely want to understand, start by learning their names." Alexander looked at her, and something profound seemed to open, shift, deep within his gray eyes. He turned fully to the boys, knelt down, and asked softly, reverently, "What are your names?" The twins looked at him, bewildered, but undeniably curious. "I'm Leo," one confidently stated. "I'm Noah," the other added, mimicking his brother. "What's your name?" Lucas offered a sad, almost broken smile. "I'm Alexander." They didn't recognize him. Why on earth would they? Willow watched from behind her table, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. This was not the moment she had ever prepared for. She never truly believed it would actually come to pass. And yet, here they were. Not as strangers anymore. Not yet as a family. But something profound had undeniably begun to shift. The truth, like a long dormant volcano, had finally erupted. And nothing, she knew with absolute certainty, would ever be the same again. What do you believe the future holds for Alexander and Willow's fractured family? Will Alexander truly be able to bridge the immense gap he created? Share your predictions in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more gripping tales of love, loss, and redemption. Alexander didn't sleep a wink that night. After the summit, after what felt like the longest, most jarring and profoundly discordant day of his entire life, he returned to his penthouse apartment, a place that once symbolized the absolute pinnacle of his success, and now felt utterly empty, completely devoid of any real meaning. The vivid image of the two small boys persisted relentlessly in his mind, haunting and alive. Leo and Noah. Their names resonated in his thoughts like a sacred mantra he never knew he desperately needed. He could still see their bright, curious eyes, so undeniably familiar it sent a sharp, aching pain through his chest, and the disarming way they had looked at him without any hint of recognition. They didn't know him. They didn't even know he existed. And that searing realization, more than anything else, utterly shattered him. The very next morning, he discreetly arranged for a private DNA test. He told absolutely no one, not his meticulous assistant, not his shrewd legal team, and certainly not his parents. This wasn't about legality or inheritance. It was about something far deeper, something he couldn't yet fully articulate, something urgent and profoundly personal, as if he required official permission to truly believe the truth, even though every fiber of his being already knew. The definitive results arrived just 3 days later. 99.9% match. There was no conceivable denial possible. He was their father. Alexander stared at the official document in profound silence for a very long time. Then, with trembling hands, he carefully folded it and reverently placed it in a secluded drawer, as if it were something both sacred and incredibly heavy. Not merely a piece of paper, but a momentous door that had just creaked open. A door he had unknowingly slammed shut from the outside 5 long years ago. He contacted Willow through the event coordinator, careful not to apply too much pressure, respecting her space. She hesitantly agreed to meet him, just once, at a small, unassuming coffee shop in the bustling Lower East Side district of Viridia City. No lawyers, no personal assistants, just them. She arrived radiating her usual quiet strength, dressed simply, her rich auburn hair pulled back in a practical bun. She looked understandably tired, but undeniably serene, and in that moment, more exquisitely beautiful than he remembered. Life, he observed, had shaped her in new, resilient ways, adding a quiet gravity to her gaze that hadn't been there before. He respectfully stood when she entered. She didn't offer even a small smile. They sat across from each other, two individuals with years of profound pain and unspoken resentment between them, and two innocent children who unknowingly bound them together forever. For a long, strained moment, neither spoke a word. The gentle hum of the coffee shop buzzed around them, the clinking of ceramic cups, the comforting hiss of steaming milk, the low murmur of quiet conversations. "I received the results," Alexander finally stated, his voice a low, measured tone. "They're mine." Willow simply nodded. "I know." He ran a frustrated hand through his dark hair, struggling desperately to find words that could possibly convey the immense weight of his regret. I don't know what to tell you." She looked at him, her emerald eyes clear, unblinking. "Then don't say anything you don't genuinely mean." "I mean it now," he insisted, his voice laced with sincerity. "Just Willow, I truly didn't know. I swear to you, I had no idea." "I believe you," she conceded, her voice softening slightly. "But that doesn't erase what happened." He lowered his gaze, a fresh wave of shame washing over him. I wanted to fight for you. I was going to. But my parents, the board, everything it all collapsed around me. I honestly didn't know how to be the man they so fiercely expected, and the man you so desperately needed. You chose them, she stated, without a trace of malice, merely stating a painful fact. You walked away. He nodded slowly, accepting her truth. Yes, and I had to raise them without you, she continued, her voice gaining a quiet force. While you were building colossal empires, I was painstakingly building cribs. While you were delivering grand speeches to adoring crowds, I was desperately trying to find enough food for dinner. Alexander flinched, the words striking him harder than any blow. Her words weren't cruel. They were simply, undeniably true. And they resonated with a devastating impact he could never have anticipated. I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness, he stated, his gaze fixed on hers. Not yet. I want a chance. To know them. To be a part of their lives, however incredibly small. However, he paused, his voice faltering, betraying the raw emotion beneath. They don't know you. They don't even truly know what a father is. For them, I am their entire world. I don't want to take anything away from you, he quickly interjected, his voice earnest. I just want to add to the incredible life you've so bravely built. Willow exhaled slowly, a long, weary sigh. They're 5 years old, Alexander. They don't understand betrayal or loyalty yet, but they absolutely understand presence. You can't just be in and out of their lives. You can't start and then suddenly stop. If you genuinely want to be in their lives, it has to be for good, for the long haul. I'm in, he declared, without a moment's hesitation, his conviction absolute. Whatever it takes. She nodded slowly, still cautious, but something imperceptible in her posture softened, a tiny crack in the formidable wall she'd built. Then you'll start small. Pick them up from school one day. Come to the local park. Just sit with them. Let them slowly come to you. If they ask questions, answer them honestly and patiently. If they run from you, don't chase them. Just be there. Alexander nodded, humbly. Okay, I can do that. As they left the coffee shop, there were no perfunctory hugs, no grand promises whispered into the bustling street, just an unspoken understanding, a fragile, tentative agreement between two people who no longer shared a romantic love, but who were now, inextricably, forever connected. Willow walked ahead, and Alexander followed at a respectful distance, not as a couple, not yet as a father, but as a man, finally, desperately, attempting to make right what had once gone so terribly, irrevocably wrong. Consider this. What are the most important elements of rebuilding trust, especially after a deep betrayal? Share your thoughts on how Alexander might continue to earn Willow's cautious trust. Hey everyone, if you're finding this story compelling, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more powerful narratives. Alexander's initial visit to the boys' bustling elementary school was nothing remotely like the meticulously choreographed corporate events he was accustomed to. There were no impeccably tailored suits, no perfectly rehearsed speeches, and certainly no powerful executives to impress. Instead, the scene was dominated by sticky handprints smeared across classroom walls, brightly colored paper airplanes whizzing haphazardly down the hallway, and the unmistakable, joyous chaos of 20 energetic children navigating their own small, vibrant universes. Alexander stood somewhat awkwardly near the school's main entrance, dressed casually in a comfortable sweater and jeans, feeling clumsy and utterly unsure of where to comfortably place his hands. He'd navigated multi-billion-dollar boardroom acquisitions without breaking even a single bead of sweat, but waiting anxiously to pick up his own children, children who, paradoxically, didn't even know they were his, made him feel like an incredibly nervous teenager on a first terrifying date. Willow had orchestrated the arrangement with thoughtful care, relaying to the boys that a friend would pick them up and take them to the local park. No loaded labels, no weighty explanations, just a simple opportunity for them to meet him on neutral, unthreatening ground. When Leo and Noah burst out of the school doors, a whirlwind of boundless energy, Alexander recognized them instantly. Their dark hair, inherited from him, shimmered in the late afternoon sunlight, and their identical gray eyes, so strikingly like his own, lit up with unbridled joy when they spotted him, even if they didn't quite grasp the full significance of who he was. He knelt down, unsure of the precise script, his heart thumping. "Hi, I'm Alexander. Your mom asked me to take you to the park today. Is that okay?" The boys exchanged a quick, silent glance. Then they looked back at him, their curiosity palpable. Leo tilted his head, a thoughtful expression on his small face. "Are you the man from the really tall building with all the people in fancy suits?" Alexander smiled, a genuine, unforced curve of his lips. "Yes, that was me." Noah, ever the pragmatist, squinted his eyes. "Do you have snacks?" Alexander laughed, a rich, warm sound he hadn't realized he possessed. "Yes, lots." And that simple answer was enough. They took his hands without a moment's hesitation and confidently led him, chattering incessantly about roaring dinosaurs and incredible spaceships, and how Leo's teacher had explained that Pluto was no longer considered a planet, which he found utterly, inexplicably unfair. Alexander listened intently to every single word, responding whenever he could. But mostly, he simply absorbed them. Their bright, innocent voices, their animated expressions, their absolute, unfiltered joy. It was overwhelming in the most beautiful, profound way possible. At the park, they immediately raced towards the swings, their laughter echoing through the crisp autumn air. Alexander settled onto a nearby bench, content to simply watch them. For a precious few minutes, he allowed himself the fragile illusion that this had always been his life, that he had always been there for them, on ordinary days like this, in precious moments like these. But that fragile illusion shattered abruptly when Noah tumbled unexpectedly off the slide, landing awkwardly and scraping his elbow. He didn't cry immediately, instead freezing, his small eyes wide and glassy, trying to decide if the pain was truly worth the impending tears. Alexander rushed over without a second thought, kneeling down and gently checking his arm. "You're okay," he murmured softly, his voice filled with genuine concern. "It's not bleeding, just a little bump." Noah blinked, tears beginning to well up. "You sound like Mommy," he whispered. Alexander paused, a pang in his chest. Then he said quietly, a hint of vulnerability in his tone, "I'm trying to be good at this, buddy." Noah leaned into him, just for a fleeting second, a small, trusting gesture that almost broke Alexander in two. He looked up and saw Leo standing nearby, observing him with an uncanny intensity. There was something remarkably calculated in Leo's gaze, not suspicion exactly, but a quiet, shrewd assessment. Alexander recognized that look immediately. He himself had worn it for countless years when desperately trying to determine if someone was truly safe, truly trustworthy. Leo finally stepped closer, his voice soft but direct. "Are you coming back?" Alexander looked him directly in the eyes, his own gaze firm, unwavering. "Yes, I'm coming back, I promise." Leo nodded once, a gesture of quiet satisfaction. Then he raced off again, calling for Noah to chase him. Alexander remained kneeling there for a moment longer, trying to regain his breath, to process the profound impact of that simple exchange. That single question, "Are you coming back?" had felt infinitely heavier than any multi-million-dollar contract he had ever signed. But his answer had been undeniably true. He would come back. Again and again. The visits continued, silently and consistently. Alexander showed up for school pickups, met them at the park, even attended classmates' birthday parties, where he knew absolutely no one. He meticulously learned which juice boxes they utterly despised, which superhero was currently dominating their imaginary worlds, and how to effectively separate them when they inevitably squabbled over the same coveted Lego piece. He learned to genuinely kneel down and truly listen, to put his ever-present comm pad away, to simply be there. Over time, the boys slowly grew accustomed to his consistent presence. They laughed more freely in his company. They called him by his first name with a little more warmth, a hint of familiarity. Leo, the more inquisitive of the two, began to ask direct questions. "Did you know my mommy when you were young? Do you live in a really big house? Why don't you have any kids?" Alexander answered each question honestly, carefully, measuring his words. He never rushed them. He never attempted to win something they weren't yet ready to freely give. One crisp autumn afternoon, as he walked them back to Willow's cozy apartment in Havenwood Falls, Noah, unprompted, reached out and took his hand. Leo did the same, then looked up at him, his small face earnest. "Why do you always smile when we talk, Alexander?" Alexander looked down at both of them, their cheeks flushed from joyful running, their matching backpacks bouncing playfully with each confident step. "Because I'm lucky," he said simply, his voice thick with emotion. "I get to be here with you." Willow was waiting at the apartment door, her arms crossed, her posture betraying a natural wariness. She always observed him closely after each visit, as if trying to precisely gauge if he had earned the privilege of another. But this time, something subtle, yet profound, shifted in her expression. She watched the boys race inside, giggling, excitedly recounting their adventures on the swings, and how Alexander had nearly tumbled off trying to race them. And then, her gaze settled on him, a searching intensity in her eyes. "You didn't leave today," she stated quietly, almost a question. "You stayed even when Noah was scared. You stayed even when Leo went quiet." Alexander simply nodded, a silent confirmation. "I told them I would," he murmured. Willow lowered her gaze, then looked back up at him, a flicker of something new in her eyes. "Keep doing that." And just like that, without grand gestures or emotional declarations, the formidable wall between them began to lower. It didn't vanish entirely, but it became perceptibly thinner. And Alexander knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that this wasn't about being instantly forgiven in one climactic moment. This was about showing up, consistently, relentlessly, in hundreds of small, ordinary moments. And he would. Always. What qualities do you believe are most important for rebuilding a fractured relationship? Especially when children are involved, share your insights in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Your support means the world to us. Alexander hadn't actually expected the word to come so soon. It had been nearly 3 months since he had begun seeing Leo and Noah regularly. He had never once missed a visit. He had never been late. He learned to sit patiently in silence when they were in a bad mood, to eagerly join in when they asked for help with complex puzzles, and to simply listen intently when they just needed to talk, even if what they were saying made little sense to his corporate-trained mind. He was meticulously careful not to push too fast, understanding the fragile nature of their burgeoning connection. He had come to accept the fact that, for now, he was just Alexander, the reliable man who brought fantastic snacks, played tag without ever checking his compad, and genuinely laughed at their innocent jokes, even when they made no sense at all. But something, slowly, profoundly, had changed. It was a bright Saturday afternoon. Willow had a crucial interview for a new, significant design contract, and had asked Alexander if he could look after the boys for a few hours. He had agreed immediately, his excitement palpable, and she had dropped them off at his penthouse apartment, which he had recently, and somewhat awkwardly, child-proofed, despite having never once thought he'd ever need to. Toys now resided in brightly colored woven baskets in the expansive living room. A small, child-sized table, adorned with crayons and construction paper, sat comfortably near the panoramic window. The sleek modern fridge was now stocked with a rainbow of juice boxes, individual string cheeses, and the kind of marshmallow-filled cereal he personally didn't approve of, but bought anyway, because Leo and Noah absolutely adored it. That afternoon, they embarked on an elaborate project, constructing a magnificent pillow fort between the plush sofas, complete with winding tunnels and a highly secret command center fashioned from old shoeboxes and small, battery-powered lanterns. Leo, the natural leader, immediately declared himself Captain Thorne. Noah, ever the inquisitive one, insisted on being the science officer because he had brought his trusty magnifying glass. Alexander gamely played along as Commander Dad, a name Noah spontaneously invented mid-game and blurted out without any conscious thought. Alexander froze for a split second, surprised by the sudden, unexpected warmth of the word. Dad. He didn't respond immediately, fearing that if he reacted too much, Noah might retract it, might feel embarrassed. So he simply smiled, a private, joyful smile, and continued playing. But inside, his emotions were a wild, beautiful whirlwind. The word resonated repeatedly in his mind. He still hadn't fully earned it. Or perhaps, just perhaps, he had. Little by little. In small, incremental pieces. Not through grand, sweeping gestures, but through unwavering consistency, dedicated time, and a quiet, profound love. Later that evening, after they had devoured a takeout dinner and were comfortably nestled under the still-standing pillow fort, watching a cartoon, Noah snuggled close beside him and looked up, his small face earnest. "Can I call you Dad now?" he whispered, "or do I have to wait?" Alexander felt an overwhelming lump form in his throat, making it difficult to speak. He looked down at Noah's tiny, serious face, then across at Leo, who was also gazing at him intently, silently clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. Alexander reached out and pulled both boys into a gentle, protective embrace. "You can call me whatever feels right to you, my brave little commanders," he said, his voice thick with emotion, barely a whisper. "But if you want to call me Dad, I would be so incredibly proud of that." Noah nodded, a shy, happy smile spreading across his face. Leo offered Alexander a small, knowing smile, the kind that spoke volumes more than any words ever could. That night, Willow arrived to pick them up. She found them sound asleep on the luxurious sofa, Noah peacefully draped across Alexander's chest, Leo curled up snugly beside him, both softly snoring in unison. Alexander, too, had drifted off, his arm protectively around both of them, the large screen TV still silently playing a cartoon in the background. She didn't wake them immediately. She simply stood there for a long, poignant moment, just watching them. A scene of quiet domestic bliss she hadn't thought possible. Something deep within her, something that had been tightly locked away for so long, began almost imperceptibly to stir. She saw how Alexander held them in their sleep, as if they had always, truly belonged there. She saw how incredibly safe they looked, how utterly peaceful. When she finally roused him, Alexander stirred slowly, blinking as he gradually registered where he was and what time it was. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, his voice still heavy with sleep. "We must have all fallen asleep." Willow shook her head gently. "They were happy, Alexander. That's all that matters." As she carefully lifted the sleeping boys and helped carry them to her car, he looked at her, his voice soft, almost hesitant. "Noah called me Dad today," he said quietly. "He asked if it was okay." Willow didn't speak immediately, processing his words. Then she looked directly at him, her eyes soft, a genuine warmth radiating from them. "He wouldn't have asked," she said, "if he didn't already feel it." The drive home was quiet, filled with a newfound stillness. Alexander rode in the back seat alongside the boys, gently holding their small hands as they slept soundly. Willow watched them in the rearview mirror, and something deep inside her settled for the very first time in what felt like an eternity. The formidable walls she had so painstakingly built to protect herself, walls that were undeniably understandable and absolutely necessary, began slowly, imperceptibly, to fall. Not with a dramatic crash, but piece by fragile piece. That night, Alexander, for the first time in years, truly couldn't sleep. He lay awake in his vast, silent penthouse, staring at the ceiling, replaying the way Noah had looked when he had uttered that single, precious word. Dad wasn't merely a title that could be claimed through birthright or legal decree. It had to be given. It had to be painstakingly earned. And now, finally, it had been. In the profound stillness of that autumn night, for the first time in years, Alexander felt completely whole. Not because of his unparalleled success, or his immense wealth, or his flawless reputation, but simply because two small boys had chosen to let him fully into their hearts, not as a mere guest, not as an occasional visitor, but as their father. Please comment below with your thoughts on Alexander's journey. We love hearing from you. Alexander hadn't consciously planned on confronting his parents. He had skillfully avoided it for months, deliberately pushing down the intense urgency whenever it surged within him, focusing instead on consistently showing up for Leo and Noah, on painstakingly earning Willow's cautious, hard-won trust, on meticulously building something genuine and lasting from the shattered fragments of the life he had once so carelessly destroyed. But a pivotal point arrived when prolonged silence no longer felt like strength. It felt, overwhelmingly, like profound surrender. The deeper he delved into the profound joys and responsibilities of fatherhood, the more acutely he saw what he had almost lost forever. And the more unbearable it became to know that his parents had, in their calculated coldness, stolen it from him with a practiced smile and a firm, dismissive handshake. He had to confront them, not for closure, he realized, but for absolute clarity. He desperately needed them to witness the profound damage they had wrought, and, more importantly, to understand what he would never ever allow them to do again. Hipat arrived at the sprawling Thorne estate on a crisp Sunday morning, the air carrying the scent of impending winter. It was exactly as he remembered it, impeccably landscaped, unnervingly cold, and utterly silent. a place meticulously designed for maintaining appearances, not for fostering warmth or comfort. His father, Arthur, met him in the grand wood-paneled library, seated in the same imposing leather armchair where countless past conversations had been framed, not as discussions, but as unyielding sermons. His mother, Evelyn, appeared mere moments later, immaculate as ever, her expression an impenetrable mask. "I'm quite surprised you came, Alexander," his father began, lacing his fingers together, a gesture of controlled disapproval. "We honestly didn't think we'd ever hear from you again." Alexander didn't sit. He remained standing near the imposing fireplace, his posture outwardly calm, but radiating an unyielding resolve. "We need to talk about Willow, about the boys." His mother stiffened visibly at Willow's name, her composure momentarily cracking. "We explicitly warned you about her years ago, Alexander," she snapped, her voice sharp. Alexander turned directly to her, his own voice sharp, but meticulously controlled. "You didn't warn me, Mother. You outright lied to me. You deliberately blocked letters. You coldly ignored calls. You paid people to keep her far away from me." His father's eyes narrowed, a predatory glint in their depths. "We did what was necessary to protect your future, Alexander. You were emotional, unfocused. You would have irrevocably thrown away your entire legacy for a girl who had absolutely nothing." Alexander took a deep, shaky breath, a raw fury simmering and rising in his chest. "That girl is the mother of my children, the two boys you didn't even bother to know existed. She raised them entirely alone, with nothing but her own strength, and they have turned out to be better, more genuine human beings than anything this family has ever produced." His mother rose gracefully from her seat, her voice cutting like a razor. "Don't be so dramatic, Alexander. Do you genuinely believe we haven't sacrificed for you? For this name? For your success?" "My success," Alexander interrupted, his voice laced with bitter irony. "It no longer has anything to do with this name. The company, the public image, the vast sums of money. None of it matters if it costs me my fundamental humanity. You tried to force me to choose between love and legacy, and in my weakness, I listened. I walked away from the only real, authentic thing I had in my life, but I will never, ever make that catastrophic mistake again." There was a profound, heavy silence in the opulent room. His father leaned back, his tone suddenly colder, more calculating, more strategic. "And now what, Alexander? Are you going to play house with some woman and pretend to be a doting family man? Do you truly believe the world will accept that facade?" Alexander looked at him, a deep disgust twisting his features. "I honestly don't care what the world chooses to believe. I care what Leo and Noah see when they look at me. I care what kind of man I am when I tuck them into bed at night. And I profoundly care about the woman who carried that immense burden when I so shamefully walked away." His mother opened her mouth, a sharp retort already forming, but he didn't allow her to speak. "I'm not here for your blessing or your approval. I am here to tell you that your control, your influence, ends here. If you cannot accept my family, my true family, then you will not be a part of our lives. That is your choice, but I am utterly fed up with living under your distorted version of success." They didn't respond immediately, their faces blank with shock. There was a visible crack in the room, a palpable fracture in the carefully constructed illusion of power they had always wielded over him. For the first time in his life, Alexander was not the vulnerable boy desperately seeking their approval. He was the man drawing a firm, unyielding line in the sand. "I pity you," he added quietly, his voice carrying a genuine sadness. "You will never truly know them. You will never get to hear Leo passionately explain how he believes the moon controls emotions, or witness the endearing way Noah draws his vibrant dreams. You will miss absolutely everything, and one day, you will realize that you traded your own grandchildren for the fleeting illusion of control. He turned and walked out, leaving them in their meticulously perfect, yet utterly hollow, house. When he returned to his apartment, Willow and the boys were waiting for him, a warm, comforting presence. She looked up as he entered, reading his face with an almost uncanny intuition. "Did you tell them?" she asked, her voice soft. He nodded. "Everything? And?" "They didn't take it well," he admitted, a sigh escaping him. Willow stepped closer, her hand gently touching his arm. "Do you regret it, Alexander?" Lucas looked at his children, who were happily building towering block structures on the floor, their innocent laughter echoing joyfully through the large room. "Not for a second," he said, his voice firm, unwavering. That night, after the boys were finally tucked into bed, Willow handed him a small, simple box. Inside was a photograph, one she had taken just weeks earlier, when he wasn't looking. He was sitting on the soft grass at the park, Noah nestled contentedly in his lap, Leo leaning comfortably against his side. All three of them laughing with unbridled joy. A perfect, candid moment. She had had it printed and framed. A silent, profound gesture. A heartfelt thank you. A new beginning. Alexander held the photograph for a long, quiet moment, studying the image of his new, true family before gently placing it on the bookshelf next to the boys' colorful art projects. He no longer needed validation from anyone else but them, his family, his future, the life he had chosen, finally, unequivocally, on his own terms. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories like this video, and let us know your favorite part in the comments. Your engagement means the world to us. Autumn in Viridia City had a unique way of softening everything. The harsh, sharp angles of the towering buildings seemed to blur under the warm, golden light of the setting sun. The constant hum of city traffic somehow sounded gentler, and even the crisp wind carried a peculiar kind of quietness. For Alexander, the subtle change of seasons profoundly mirrored the transformation happening deep within himself. Something that had been cold and unyielding for a very long time had begun, slowly, tenderly, to thaw, and in its place, a profound warmth blossomed, a warmth he had once genuinely feared he didn't deserve. It had been almost a full year since he had first learned about Leo and Noah, and every single day since then had been a conscious, deliberate choice. He had chosen them. He had chosen Willow. He had chosen to consistently show up, again and again, not as the impossibly perfect man his parents had groomed him to be, but as a truly present one, flaws and all. Life wasn't meticulously flawless anymore, but it was, undeniably, overflowing with meaning and joy. His mornings now began with the delightful chaos of spilled cereal, the eternal quest for mismatched socks, and the joyful struggle of getting two energetic 5-year-olds out the door for school. His nights ended with cherished bedtime stories and small, warm hands curled trustingly into his shirt as they drifted off to sleep beside him. His sleek, once impersonal penthouse apartment had long since transformed from a stylish, sterile bachelor pad into a warm, lived-in home where vibrant finger paintings proudly adorned the walls and tiny sneakers were perpetually kicked off near the bustling front door. The boys called him Dad now, without a moment's hesitation. Sometimes with enthusiastic shouts, sometimes with playful frustration, sometimes in hushed whispers when they desperately needed comfort. And each and every time, the words still struck him with the quiet, overwhelming force of pure wonder. Willow, too, had visibly softened. Not entirely, of course. There were still moments when the immense weight of their shared, painful history caused her to subtly withdraw, to pull Sambihan a little. But those moments were thankfully fewer now, and always, unfailingly, followed by something small, yet profoundly significant. A soft glance, a gentle hand placed on his back, an unfinished sentence that spoke volumes and was perfectly understood. They had meticulously rebuilt their shattered trust. Again, not through dramatic apologies or grand, sweeping gestures, but through the simple, consistent rhythm of shared responsibility and profound mutual care. He respected her more deeply than ever before, not only for her incredible strength in raising the boys entirely alone, but for doing so without ever allowing her immense pain to turn her bitter or resentful. She had every conceivable reason to shut him out forever, to banish him from their lives, but she hadn't. And that silent, unspoken, yet deeply felt forgiveness was, without a doubt, the greatest gift he had ever been given. One tranquil Saturday morning, as the boys were happily engrossed in their play in the living room, and Willow was calmly preparing coffee in the kitchen, Alexander paused by the large window, a small, unassuming box held firmly in his hand. It wasn't a luxurious velvet box, nor was it emblazoned with any prestigious brand name. It was simple, clean, and meticulously chosen. Inside, nestled on a soft bed, lay a ring, delicate, yet undeniably strong. He had spent months, countless hours, agonizing over how to ask her, how to make the moment perfect. Initially, he had envisioned something grand and ostentatious, a vast bouquet of roses, a hidden photographer, a sweeping romantic gesture against the breathtaking Viridia city skyline. But he quickly realized that wasn't their unique story. Their story had been painstakingly rebuilt in quiet, intimate hours, in murmured, soft apologies, in hallways joyfully cluttered with Lego creations and vibrant, crayon-signed notes. He didn't need flashy fireworks. He simply needed the truth, spoken from his heart. He walked into the kitchen, his heart thumping a nervous rhythm against his ribs, and waited for her to look up. She raised a delicate eyebrow at the unexpected seriousness etched on his face. "What happened?" she inquired, her voice laced with mild concern. "Nothing," he said, a small, nervous smile playing on his lips. "That's precisely the point." He gently took her hand and led her into the living room, where the boys were still happily playing. They looked up, their faces filled with curiosity but not surprise, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Alexander knelt down on one knee, and for a long, poignant moment, everything else around them faded into a profound, sacred silence. "I don't want to rewrite the past, Willow," he began, his voice steady. "Earnest, I only want to write the rest of our story with you, as your devoted partner, as the proud father of our incredible boys, as the man who, finally, truly understands what it means to love completely and to show up fully in every single moment." Willow's emerald eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she didn't cry. She was far too strong for such a display. She simply smiled, a small, tentative smile at first, then a wider, radiant one that lit up her entire face, and she nodded, a single, decisive movement. "Yes," she said simply, her voice clear and strong. "Because I don't need perfection, Alexander. I just need you." The boys, sensing the immense goodness of the moment, even if they didn't fully comprehend its meaning, clapped their small hands with delight. They immediately piled into his arms, their combined weight unbalancing him until they all tumbled into a laughing, joyous heap on the plush living room carpet. The wedding arrived a few months later. It wasn't extravagant or ostentatious. It didn't need to be. They celebrated it in the small, vibrant community garden that Willow had helped design years ago, a place filled with life and natural beauty. Close friends and a few trusted family members gathered, intimate and quiet, seated comfortably among rows of late marigolds and ivy-covered fences. The boys, adorable in their matching vests, proudly carried the rings, far too excited to walk slowly down the aisle. Willow wore a simple, elegant ivory dress, her beautiful hair flowing freely, a single, fresh daisy tucked gently behind one ear. Alexander couldn't stop smiling as she walked towards him, her steps firm and confident, her loving eyes locked steadfastly on his. There were no elaborate speeches about destiny, no dramatic quotes from classic poems, only vows spoken directly from their hearts, short, profoundly honest, and beautifully unpolished. Promises to choose each other, not just on the easy, sunny days, but unequivocally on the difficult, challenging ones too. Promises to parent together, as a united team, to inevitably make mistakes, and to always find forgiveness, to lovingly hold each other accountable, and to fiercely hold each other close. When they finally kissed, it wasn't the kind of kiss that marked a sudden, passionate beginning. It was the kind that deeply sealed something already painstakingly built, slowly, often painfully, but ultimately, beautifully. Afterwards, as the sun began to set, casting a warm, golden glow across the garden, Leo and Noah chased each other through the soft grass, their joyful shrieks echoing in the twilight. Alexander watched them, his hand gently intertwined with Willow's, his chest overflowing with a profound peace he had never truly known in his previous life of boardrooms, power, and crushing silence. He had once believed that true success meant immense power, a flawless public image, and absolute control. But standing there, barefoot in a simple garden, with the undeniable love of his life by his side, and his two precious sons chasing butterflies directly in front of him, he finally, truly understood what it all meant. He was home. Completely. Finally. And this time, he wasn't going anywhere. The ending of this story isn't just satisfying. It's quietly powerful and profoundly realistic. It doesn't rely on an exaggerated, sudden redemption or a whimsical, fairy tale perfection, but rather celebrates the painstaking, messy, and deeply human work of rebuilding. Alexander's transformation is not instant or miraculous. It's hard-earned, step by meticulous step, through his consistent presence, profound humility, and the courageous willingness to confront everything he once so fearfully fled. That gradual, authentic evolution is precisely what makes it so meaningful and impactful. Willow's unwavering strength is the true emotional backbone of this entire narrative. She never needed to be saved by anyone. She needed and ultimately demanded respect, consistency, and absolute truth. And in the end, she received all of it. Not because she was quick to forgive, but because she intimately knew her own immeasurable worth. The love they rediscover is not naive or overly romanticized. It is mature, deeply layered with past pain and profound healing, and undeniably stronger precisely because of what they have both survived. The final image of them, a family built on authentic love, conscious choice, and the hard-won gift of second chances is not merely beautiful. It is profoundly hopeful. It serves as a powerful reminder that broken things are not always permanently lost. Sometimes they are simply waiting, patiently, to be rebuilt, one honest, loving brick at a time. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and let us know your favorite part of this heartwarming journey in the comments below.